Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Today, we have a really cool alleged 90s NAMM show display piece to document. I'm really excited to crack this puppy open because NAMM show pieces are always cool. So the story behind this buy is I was on Reverb one afternoon, as I am constantly throughout the day, checking my feed, doing my manual searches, everything we talked about in this video. And finally, something shows up that just blows my socks off. It's like, oh my goodness. So naturally, a cool piece like this is listed for a premium price. I made an offer, they countered $500 higher than that, and it's like, I'm not gonna be able to ever find this thing again or replace it, so let's go ahead and do it. This is going to knock your guys' socks off. That's all I'm gonna say. Let's go ahead and get this thing open. No more teasing. Inside here sleeps a Brazilian beauty. Look at this gorgeous Les Paul Jr. / Les Paul Standard / who knows exactly what we're going to end up naming this thing, but it is sick, like just beyond belief. And what's even better is we also have a matching headstock on this thing. So besides the beautiful top that we have going on here that is advertised as a Brazilian rosewood top, and I'm not really good at telling if, hey, yeah, that's definitely Brazilian or not, but this looks exactly like some of the Brazilian rosewood Les Paul customs we've documented that Gibson did in the mid-70s, so I would definitely be willing to believe the top is Brazilian. However, the fretboard has also been rumored to be Brazilian on this one. Now, I think the reason why it looks so different as compared to the top or even the face of the headstock is because it didn't get lacquered like the rest of the guitar. But it might just be that, hey, maybe that's not actually Brazilian rosewood, because I'll be honest, it doesn't really look like the Brazilian boards that I'm aware of. But that headstock is so special, I love it. Gibson doesn't really do wooden peghead veneers very often. Like sometimes you'll find the flame maple headstock veneers, but as far as a rosewood one, yeah, you don't find that too often. I mean, you could say, hey, you can also get that on the Paul, but I mean, that's walnut wood and a little bit different. But you might look at this and go, hey, it's a one humbucker Les Paul Jr.? Is that what this is? No, this is a carved top. You see the little belly ridge right here? So it's more like a Les Paul Standard that just happens to have a Wraptail piece and a humbucker, because it's also a full body width here. But like a Junior, it doesn't actually have any binding along it. So you just kind of get like a natural rosewood binding along the body, because obviously you've got the rosewood top and it's exposed, but you still have the mahogany back here. But the matching knobs are definitely a nice touch. I swear I've seen Gibson use these before on some like really high-end arch tops. So these aren't necessarily anything new, but it's cool to see on a Les Paul styled instrument. But that's enough talking about the top of this. Let's finally flip it over to the back. You see what's strange about this? It actually has not only a wooden backplate back here, but it's the Les Paul Jr. style one, despite, more so being akin to a Les Paul Standard. So this really is kind of just like the Les Paul Senior that we had just reviewed and documented, except for, humbucker and a little bit fancier of woods. But little did we know, this thing actually existed all the way back in 1998. 8 tells you it's a 1998, and then the 9073 is a production number for this particular year. So that puts us into the very early years of the Gibson custom shop, because that first opened in late 1993. So 98 is when they start to have fun. So that means this new guy perfectly pairs with another one from my personal collection, the Les Paul Elegant The Mummy, as I've deemed it. Except for this one was a Wraptail piece with a P90 and a cool custom finish. I'm really curious if we are going to see some of the Les Paul Elegant specs in this guitar that we see in this one from like 1999. The neck is really chunky feeling, kind of like a R7 is the best way I would put it. So I guess it kind of confines to like regular Les Paul Jr. specs in that aspect, maybe even a little bit bigger than those though. The body is feeling kind of light on this thing, so it might have some elegant specs built into it, because when I was researching this to make sure it was legit, I actually found, I think it was the serial number right before this one, 89072, and it was a Les Paul Elegant. So it's like, all right, maybe it's another weird custom ordered Elegant. We're just gonna have to find out. But even if it's not a good fit there, it definitely matches my The Hippo over here, which is a 1983 Gibson NAMM show display piece based on the Gibson Crest. It also has that headstock veneer going on and some sort of a cool rosewood top here with gold hardware. Needless to say, I'm elated because it's great. I just wish I could get back one of my old Brazilian Les Paul customs because those tops are really cool. So to learn a little bit more about this one, let's go ahead and throw it on the workbench. Make sure it's not some hodgepodge guitar that's been refinished and being sold as something special, because unfortunately I couldn't find any 1998 NAMM show pictures that had this, but I did find a couple other cool ones that I might share with you guys in like a Rock or Not episode. So let's get on to that workbench. Inside this Brazilian beauty, I'm sad. I can't see any faces or anything interesting out of this one. Like the Hippo, there's a hippo on the back. This one, I'm not seeing anything in particular, so if you see anything, let me know. Maybe we could just nickname it the Figured 8 based off of this, but maybe we can make something out of this. I guess I could call it whatever that Pikmin monster is, because that's like its brain or something? I don't know. Because calling it I something is just boring. Maybe we could call it Horizon, which blends I in the guitar in a different way. So, our pickup is a humbucker, and the backside says patent applied for, so that likely means this is a 57 Classic. That is the exact same style that you would find in guitars at this point in time. Our cover is in pretty good shape. It cleaned up pretty well. Unfortunately, no special markings in here. It looks like maybe it said something right there at one point in time, or maybe that's just some stain, which is most likely what it is. But hey, check this out. How often do you see a Brazilian rosewood top on your inside? Not too often, but I'm not going to say it was never done before. It's an extra chocolatey guitar. Here's a little bit of foreshadowing for you. Pickup reads a full 7.97k ohms. The tailpiece is as basic as it comes. It's just your regular Wraptail piece. There's no lightning bar on it for intonation. You just have your Allen key screws on the side to wiggle it back and forth to set your intonation. It has the casting line on the back. Then as far as controls go here, just master volume, master tone. No coil splits or anything fancy like that. However, in case you missed it, we actually have little mother of pearl inserts right here, so you can tell if you're on 10 or 0 over here. And these are really secure knobs. They have a locking screw right here, and then even if you take that out, you still have to really yank hard to get these knobs off. I was going to try to remove one to get a close look on it, but I decided, I don't want to break anything, so I just let it be. What a really cool top here. It cleaned up great. It had like a little bit of a residue, like maybe there was a whole bunch of dust on this for such a long time, but now it's back to being super sparkly so I can get those awesome B-roll shots. But again, it is a carved top, as you can see very clearly here in our reflections. But let's move on to our neck here. I was definitely correct that this fretboard would have looked awesome lacquered, because when I had the oil on it, it looked just like the rest of the guitar. So that was a little bit of a missed opportunity for Gibson, I think. But I really like these side marker inlays. They're done up in a very nice mother of pearl. It's pretty pale, but it sticks out great against the rosewood colors and the mahogany colors. But we've got 22 medium jumbo style frets, a typical 24 3/4 inch scale length. But we've got to be really careful when we measure this, our fretboard radius. So the first fret's at about 12. Now the moment of truth, does it stay 12? It looks like it does. I'll check it for 16 just in case, but no, that's definitely way too flat. So it's just your regular 12-inch fretboard radius. That'll come important later on. We've got a nut width of 1.71 inches, then increases to 2.05 by the 12th. First fret neck depth, 0.94, then 1.07 by the 12th. That is a chunky neck, but let's take it back like right here because I think we're getting some of the heel. But even then, 1.03. So if you like big baseball bat necks, that is for you. Here it is at the first fret and the 12th fret. Nice chunky C-shaped neck profile. But check this headstock out. I love it when they do fancy headstock peg head veneers. Like this one being rosewood, it's been done before, but it's not done often enough. It just makes it look so cool. Our truss rod appears to be in fine shape, and we've got our typical shrinking around the Gibson logo, but it's definitely the same mother of pearl that was used on the rest of this instrument. But notice, this is not technically a Les Paul model because it doesn't have the Les Paul model silkscreen right there. However, I think I definitely agree that it didn't need one. The purpose of this one was definitely showing off some beautiful rosewood. But here's that rosewood truss rod cover. It is also finished over, so it's got a cool gloss appearance to it, whereas the back is not. So you can actually put it on here and see how out of place it would have looked had they had not lacquered it. As far as the condition goes, I was sold this as mint condition, but I zoomed in on the photos, so I was kind of expecting these little dings on the side. Got another one right here. Sadly, we've got a pretty good scratch right here on the front that I was unsuccessful in removing. But thankfully, all the little picking scratches here disappeared. And we'll have to flip over to the backside to see the rest. So here's where you start to see a few dings around the output jack area and where your strap would be. We've got some buckle marks back here, and some honest play wear and dings along the other edges. Overall, I'm not going to worry too much about it. Now let's get to the fun stuff. We've got a pot code of 1996, and then over here we have a Gibson branded pot. I'm sure a lot of guys would be like, uh-oh, something's been replaced, they don't match. But no, that's just how the late 90s were. So that's actually very comforting for me to see, so I know that's original. But, do you see what I'm seeing here? This certainly has Les Paul Elegant style chambering, so I'm gonna have to break out that endoscope. Alright, so if you're not familiar with Les Paul Elegant chambering, basically they have a center block, but then the rest of this area is just all chambered out. However, what makes it unique is the entire chamber is connected. So you can actually see through to the entirety of the guitar right here. So we can see the mahogany right here. You can tell there's going to be some figuring on the edge right there. And then we're looking at the mahogany back right now towards the top there. And this right here is the rosewood top. So it's not normally brown under here. So right up here, we're actually seeing the cutaway area that you wouldn't normally see. And up here, you would see where the toggle switch would be. So when I first popped the cover and saw that, I was instantly elated because, yeah, this definitely belongs in my collection because it's a perfect partner to the Mummy. Because it's got a lot of the same stuff going on except for having binding. I mean, even this one doesn't have any inlays on it. But the big difference between this and the Mummy is this actually has, Les Paul Jr. control style layout instead of the full-on Les Paul routing back here. So that kind of makes it unique in its own right, and it's unfinished on the back just like the other one. And it's too reflective here in the studio, but you do have a little bit of a chatoyant effect with the wood grain kind of dancing. And you also have a little bit of bird's eye in like this area right here and a few other spots. Unfortunately, it's not one of those crazy quilty backs like sometimes you can find on the Elegance, but it's a decent back nonetheless. But the side of this guitar is just so much fun to look at, especially in the cutaway, because you get to see the exotic color top. Now, if you want something like this that's not exactly the same as this, but a little bit cheaper, check out one of the Zebra Wood Les Pauls from the Guitar of the Week series. Some of their Zebra Woods can look kind of similar to this. But now we move on to the neck. It's just a nice mahogany neck, nothing too crazy going on over here, until you get to right here. There's actually a flamed figuring to the neck, just in like this area right there. You can kind of see it in certain angles. I'll get a nice B-roll shot that you're looking at here. So that was a nice surprise when I took a look at the back. Then we've got our Gibson Custom Shop decal right here. And finally, after waiting 40 minutes on Gibson's phone, somebody picked up and they were able to look up the serial number for me. Apparently, there is a large handful of guitars that actually use this exact same serial number. He said, yeah, that's pretty common to sometimes repeat it once or twice. But he said since there were so many, it's possible that all the NAMM show display pieces for that particular year might have shared a serial number. But he didn't see anything that exactly matched this, unfortunately. But that's the way it goes sometimes. They don't mark everything. He found like 3 or 4 different Firebirds with this number, so maybe those were also within the displays. So as of right now, I'm hoping somebody remembers this guitar or something, because it might not have been NAMM show. It could have been any show that Gibson went to that they wanted to show something special off with. But you can see there is a small ding right there. And if you catch it in the light just right, you can see some finish checking here by the tuners, which it's pretty common. It really puts me at ease that this thing wasn't 100% mint condition, but it's still clean enough that I definitely want to keep this. Like, don't even bother asking me about this unless you're bringing like $25,000 to the table. That's how much I like this guy. You can also see there's some minor bubbling occurring by the tuners. That's pretty common. I just hope it doesn't actually spread or flake. I'll have to keep an eye on that over the years. You can see some more of that right here, but most of them are not all that bad. And of course, pieces like these, you have to blacklight them. I've always liked the way that old Rosewood guitars blacklight because they kind of get a reddish green hue to them because the Rosewood starts to bleed through the whole blacklighting process. It looks pretty cool. That's especially true on your lacquered knobs and things like the truss rod cover that we'll see. So everything's looking good on our top here. And this piece gets that special treatment here on the headstock as well. You can see the lacquer is nice and aged. And again, you can see those small chips, nicks, and dings I was talking about on the edges. The back is also looking good here.
But we'll take a special look at the back plate. Now moving up the back of the neck, you can see maybe a stand or somebody left a strap on it. It had a slight reaction to the finish in a couple of areas. And then up here in the typical headstock brake area, at first I was a little bit scared because like, uh-oh, is that some sort of a touch-up? No, it just appears to be, you know, something similar to like a stand that was holding it right here. Maybe it held it on the back as well in the U shape and just kind of slightly discolored the finish over time. But you do have a little bit of stand rash on either side here. Then I already told you about the finish checking, but you can really see that much more clearly under blacklight here. That's just a common phenomenon that happens though. So I don't notice any foul play. Doesn't feel like a refinish. Doesn't feel like something that somebody modified themselves together to pull off as a unique piece. So I'm gonna go ahead and give it my seal of approval. It's good enough for me to keep. But the blacklight test wouldn't be complete without this cross section. Kind of makes it look like it does have binding. And I can tell this guitar has been taken care of in a collection because the fret ends aren't extra sharp and there's no binding on this to hide that at all. All said and done, this one's about 8 pounds 3 ounces. Let's go ahead, plug it in, and hear how it sounds. Now that I've got this thing on a strap, the side profile view of it really just looks like rosewood binding, so I think that's what they were going for. We already talked about that phenomenon on the side of the body as well, but let's go ahead and get some tone samples out of this. So it's got kind of an interesting mid-rangey tone. Let's see how it sounds with a little bit of distortion now. Now that we know all about this Brazilian beauty, what are my final thoughts on this thing? Absolutely zero regrets picking this thing up. It is such a sweet Les Paul. It cleaned up great. It's got Brazilian rosewood everywhere. I mean, what's not to love? It's a ridiculously resonant guitar. I mean, just picking this up and strumming it, you get that whole vibrating everywhere in the guitar phenomenon. So I think that has to do something with the custom shop chambering style, because I really do like the elegant style chambering. It's a little bit different than the Gibson USA style. However, I'm not going to say this guitar really inspired me to play anything in particular. It was just kind of an interesting mid-rangey tone, so I might have to experiment with this one a little bit more. However, I mean, for me, it's just a beautiful personal collection guitar that people will see in the museum. So
playability and tone's not necessarily the most important thing to me when I'm piecing together my cool collection that I want to show everybody, right? But it's a Gibson Les Paul. Obviously, it's going to be pretty darn good. So at the end of the day, what exactly do I think this is? Well, even though it has the Les Paul Elegant chambering system, everything else about it doesn't really follow the Les Paul Elegant. So I don't think I'm actually going to attach that to the title of this one. It's basically just its own thing. Kind of like a R7 or R8 reissue, but without the binding, has the chambering and the Brazilian attributes to it. It's just kind of its own weird freak of a model. But that's why I love it. All right, Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed this awesome find. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care.